Here's the real difference between modern US economics and Jesus. Inflation assumes people must be controlled. Jesus assumes people must be personally transformed. These two ideas don't just disagree, they produce completely different worlds. In the Christian Trinitarian theology, Jesus is not a manager or a regulator of law. Primarily, he is the Son, a free person within the Trinity. He is sent by the Father not to enforce the law, but to be heard and encountered as a person. He is the personal power, and that stands in contrast to some abstraction called law. And so on earth, what does Jesus do? He doesn't grow by accumulation. He does not come as a king, even though humanity tried to force him to be one. Remember the incident after feeding the 5,000? He did not come to be served, but to serve. Consequently, he doesn't just forgive debt, but reveals something greater than power of law. How forgiveness of debt builds real eternal power. Power centered around serving and building eternal personal relationships. This is not what humanity expected. Humanity, represented by the Jewish nation at the time, wanted a king with laws and power to subdue the Roman Empire for themselves, obviously. But they got Jesus, who rebuked the entire concept of power, and many could not stand the thought of it, as described in John 6. That's a vision of reality, the reality, where personhood matters more than systems and laws. Unfortunately, inflation is built on a foundation of control, not personhood. So let's compare Jesus to inflation in the US economy. Inflation exists due to the official mandate by the Congress to the Fed. The mandate is stabilize prices, maintain employment, stimulate growth, and encourage spending, to say the least. But underneath all of that is one big assumption. This is part of the foundation of the entire US economic system. And that is, people cannot be trusted to self-regulate. Stability must be managed and controlled. So behavior must be nudged, and money must quietly lose value to provide flexibility for control. This is the untold story. Control. Or maybe it's the only story most people believe to this day. So, more precisely, the Federal Reserve targets 2% inflation not because it is claimed to be the ideal to grow the economy, but because it preserves their levers to control money supply. Hence, human vision of power. However, a system that must intervene forever is admitting it can never finish the job. This is where Jesus stands as the light, providing radically different vision for economics, not through law, inflation, and control, but through personal power. He did not come to optimize systems or laws. Plus, that was already available. He flipped the script. He demands personal power, free and responsible persons. He grounds the formation of power in relational trust and faith in personhood, not in impersonal systems or legal structures. Jesus himself is the personal power and center around which all human history turns. When Jesus said, "Follow me," he did not mean, "Here are the check marks to follow," which is law all over again. He meant, relate to others the way I relate to you. And that is more powerful than any law. Believe that. So when he says, forgive debt, it's not a shallow numbers game. It's an act and an opportunity to build a relationship, which is the real power. Inflation cannot play that role. He also said, don't hoard, because to hoard is not the end. It's a tool to grow in personhood. Also, don't serve wealth, because systems have no real power. They are cold letters and numbers. So law can restrain, inflation can manage for a time, but only transformed persons can have an eternal economy without bust cycles like the West has. So here's the summary. The US economic system prioritizes stability through control. Jesus prioritizes eternal stability through transformed personal power. Having the person of Jesus as the living word that we put our personal trust in. Those are not the same visions. So what are we to do practically? I think another video is in order.